The unexpected summons. The morning started like any other on Haven's Edge colony. Marcus Webb wiped grease from his hands with an old rag, squinting at the malfunctioning atmospheric processor that had been giving him trouble for 3 days straight. The machine hummed with an irregular rhythm that made his teeth ache. He was known throughout the colony as the man who could fix anything, a reputation earned through years of keeping their small outpost running on salvaged parts and stubborn determination. The colony existed on the very edge of human space, a collection of prefab buildings and jury-rigged equipment that somehow managed to house 3,000 souls. Most were miners, farmers, or engineers like Marcus who had chosen the frontier life over the comfort of inner worlds. They were the kind of people who solved problems with their hands and asked questions later. Marcus had been working since dawn, his brown hair sticking to his forehead with sweat. At 32, he carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who had seen his share of trouble and lived to tell about it. His hands were permanently stained with engine oil, and his jumpsuit bore patches from a dozen different repair jobs. The colonists trusted him because he delivered results, not promises. The first sign something was wrong came when the morning supply shuttle failed to arrive. Marcus checked his chronometer twice, frowning at the empty sky. Captain Torres was never late, not in the 5 years Marcus had known him. The old pilot treated his schedule like a sacred ritual, arriving at Haven's Edge every Tuesday at exactly 0800 hours with supplies from the inner colonies. The second sign was the silence. The usual chatter from the communication array had stopped, completely. No weather updates, no news from neighboring systems, no routine check-ins from passing ships. The colony's communication officer, a nervous young woman named Janet, had spent the morning frantically trying to re-establish contact with anyone beyond their atmosphere. Marcus was elbow-deep in the processor's cooling system when the ships appeared. They didn't announce themselves with the usual transponder signals or radio chatter. Instead, they simply materialized in the sky above the colony like storm clouds, their sleek forms casting long shadows across the settlement. The vessels were unlike anything in human design, all curves and flowing lines that seemed to bend light around their edges. The colonists gathered in small groups, pointing at the sky and speaking in hushed tones. Marcus emerged from his workshop, wiping his hands clean as he studied the alien craft. They hung motionless above the colony, neither threatening nor welcoming, just present. Their silence was more unsettling than any show of force could have been. When the landing craft descended, it touched down in the colony's central square with barely a whisper. The ship's hull was a deep blue-black color that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. No doors were visible until they simply appeared, iris-like openings that revealed nothing but darkness within. The figures that emerged moved with a fluid grace that reminded Marcus of dancers or predators. They were tall, easily 7 feet in height, with elongated limbs and skin that shifted between silver and pale blue depending on the light. Their faces were angular, almost sculptural, with large eyes that held depths Marcus couldn't fathom. They wore form-fitting armor that seemed to be grown rather than manufactured, with surfaces that rippled and flowed like living metal. The leader stepped forward, and Marcus felt his breath catch. She was magnificent in a way that was both beautiful and terrifying. Her armor bore intricate markings that pulsed with soft light, and her presence commanded attention without demanding it. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of authority tempered by something that might have been sadness. "I am Commander Zephyr of the Stellar Convergence," she announced, her words carrying clearly across the square despite the lack of any visible amplification device. "We seek the one called Marcus Webb." The colonists turned to look at him, their faces showing confusion and concern. Marcus felt his stomach drop. He had no idea why alien visitors would know his name, let alone seek him out specifically. He stepped forward slowly, his hands raised to show he carried no weapons. "That's me," he said, his voice steadier than he felt. What do you want? Commander. Zephyr studied him with those deep, alien eyes. You will come with us, Marcus Webb. There is something you must see, something that requires your particular abilities. I'm not going anywhere until you tell me what this is about, Marcus replied, crossing his arms. The colonists behind him murmured their agreement, and he felt their support like a warm presence at his back. Commander Zephyr's expression didn't change, but something in her posture shifted. She gestured, and two of her soldiers stepped forward. They moved with the same fluid grace as their commander, their armor shifting and adapting as they walked. Marcus noticed they carried no visible weapons, but something about their bearing suggested they didn't need any. This is not a request, Zephyr said softly. Lives depend on your cooperation, Marcus Webb. More lives than you can imagine. Marcus looked back at his neighbors, at the faces of people who had become family over the years. He thought about running, about hiding in the maze of maintenance tunnels beneath the colony. But something in Commander Zephyr's voice stopped him. There was pain there, carefully controlled but unmistakable. This wasn't conquest or intimidation. This was desperation. Will you hurt anyone here if I come with you? He asked. No harm will come to your people, Zephyr replied immediately. You have my word as a commander of the Convergence. Marcus nodded slowly. Then I'll come. But I want answers. The journey to the alien ship was surreal. Marcus walked between the two soldiers, acutely aware of their silent presence. The other colonists watched from doorways and windows, their faces showing worry and confusion. Janet, the communications officer, stepped forward as they passed. Marcus, what should we tell? Then when they ask where you've gone, she called out. He looked back at her, at all of them, and managed a smile. Tell them I went to fix something that was broken. The interior of the alien ship defied easy description. The walls seemed to breathe, pulsing with soft bioluminescent light that provided illumination without casting harsh shadows. The floors felt warm beneath his feet, and the air carried a faint scent of ozone and something floral that he couldn't identify. Everything was curved and organic, as if the ship had been grown rather than built. Commander Zephyr led him through corridors that branched and merged like the arteries of some vast organism. They passed other crew members, all tall and graceful, like their commander who watched Marcus with curious but not unfriendly eyes. The ship felt alive in a way that human vessels never did, responding to their presence with subtle changes in lighting and temperature. They stopped before a door. That seemed to be made of the same material as the walls. Zephyr placed her hand against it, and it dissolved like morning mist, revealing a chamber beyond. The room was smaller than Marcus had expected, more intimate. Soft light emanated from panels in the walls, and the air held a gentle warmth that reminded him of summer evenings on Earth. In the center of the chamber sat a young alien, smaller than the others he had seen. The child, for that's clearly what it was, looked up at him with eyes that held far too much pain for someone so young. Its skin was pale, almost translucent, and Marcus could see delicate veins beneath the surface that pulsed with an irregular rhythm. This is Nyx, Commander Zephyr said softly. And Nyx is dying. Marcus knelt beside the child, his engineer's instincts taking over as he studied the small figure. Nyx couldn't have been more than 8 years old by human standards, but there was something ancient in those eyes, a wisdom born of suffering that made Marcus's heart ache. What's wrong with him? Marcus asked. Not him, Zephyr corrected gently. Nyx is neither male nor female as your species understands such things, and what is wrong cannot be easily explained. Nyx is unique, Marcus Webb, the first of their kind, and possibly the last. Marcus looked closer and saw what he had missed before. The child's features were a blend of alien and human characteristics, subtle but unmistakable once he knew what to look for. The shape of the ears, the structure of the hands, the way the light caught in those two knowing eyes. Nyx is a hybrid, he whispered. Yes, Zephyr replied, born of two species that were never meant to create life together. Nyx exists in defiance of biology, of politics, of the hatred that has kept our peoples apart for generations. And now, that impossible life is fading. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. What does this have to do with me? Commander Zephyr moved to stand beside him, her presence both comforting and overwhelming. Your genetic signature, Marcus Webb, is one of only 12 in human space that can stabilize Nyx's condition. Your presence, your proximity, can slow the deterioration and perhaps even reverse it. That's impossible, Marcus protested. I'm just an engineer. I fix machines, not people. You are more than you know, Zephyr said. Your bloodline carries traces of genetic modifications made by your ancestors, modifications that create a unique resonance with hybrid biology. You are not just an engineer, Marcus Webb. You are a bridge between worlds. Marcus stared at the dying child, his mind reeling. And if I refuse? Zephyr's expression hardened, and for a moment he saw the warrior beneath the diplomat. Then Nyx dies, and with their death dies any hope of peace between our species. There are those on both sides who would see Nyx's existence as an abomination, proof that cooperation between humans and the Convergence is impossible. Nyx's survival would prove them wrong. She knelt beside him, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. But there are also those who would kill to prevent that proof from existing. If you agree to help Nyx, Marcus Webb, you will be placing yourself in terrible danger. There are forces at work here that would see both you and Nyx dead before they would allow the future Nyx represents to come to pass. Marcus looked at the child again, at the fragile life hanging in the balance. Nyx reached out with one small hand, and Marcus found himself taking it without thinking. The child's skin was warm, and he could feel the irregular pulse of their heartbeat through their fingertips. Why me? He asked. Why not someone else with the right genetic markers? Commander Zephyr's expression softened, and for a moment she looked less like a military commander and more like a mother worried for her child. Because the others are all safely in the heart of human space, protected by fleets and governments and bureaucracy. You are here, on the edge of everything, where desperate measures are the only measures that matter. She stood, her armor catching the soft light of the chamber. And because, Marcus Webb, you are the only one who would kneel beside a dying child without asking what species they belong to. Marcus realized she was right. From the moment he had seen Nyx, he had thought only of their pain, not their alien nature. It was the same instinct that had driven him to fix broken machines and help struggling colonists, the simple human need to make things better. What do I have to do? He asked. Commander Zephyr smiled, and it transformed her face completely. Exactly what you have always done, Marcus Webb. You must fix something that is broken, even if the cost may be everything you have ever known. As if in response to his words, Nyx's grip on his hand tightened slightly, and Marcus felt something shift in the child's breathing. The irregular rhythm smoothed just a little, becoming more stable. He looked up at Commander Zephyr in amazement. It's already working, she said softly. Your presence is already making a difference. Marcus squeezed Nyx's hand gently, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders like a familiar tool belt. He had fixed atmospheric processors and water recyclers, communication arrays and power generators. Now he would try to fix something infinitely more complex and precious, the future of two species learning to live as one. Then we better get started, he said, and meant it. The price of unity. 3 days had passed since Marcus agreed to help Nyx, and the child's condition had stabilized beyond anyone's expectations. The medical bay aboard Commander Zephyr's ship hummed with activity as alien physicians monitored, readings that showed steady improvement in Nyx's vital signs. Marcus had barely left the child's side, learning to read the strange displays and understanding the delicate balance that kept the young hybrid alive. Nyx had begun to speak more, their voice a melodic blend of human inflection and alien harmonics. They told Marcus about dreams of vast cities where humans and aliens walked together, of gardens that grew both earth flowers and convergence crystals, of a future where the war between their peoples was just a sad memory. The child's optimism was infectious, and Marcus found himself believing in possibilities he had never imagined. But the peace was shattered when Lieutenant Raven burst into the medical bay, her usually composed demeanor cracking with urgency. The lieutenant was smaller than Commander Zephyr, but no less formidable, with intricate tattoos that covered her arms and glowed softly when she was agitated. They were glowing now. "Commander, we have a problem," Raven announced, her voice tight with controlled panic. "Both the Human Colonial Authority and the Convergence High Command have discovered Nyx's location. Fleets are moving from both sides. Commander." Zephyr stood slowly from where she had been sitting beside Nyx's bed, her face becoming a mask of cold determination. "How long do we have?" 18 hours at most, Raven replied. "The human fleet will arrive first, but only by minutes." "They're both coming in force, Commander. This isn't a rescue mission or a diplomatic envoy. They're coming to end this." Marcus felt his blood turn to ice. "And what exactly?" Zephyr turned to him, and he saw pain in her alien features that transcended species barriers. "End Nyx. End. The proof that our species can create life together. End the hope that we can ever be anything other than enemies." Nyx stirred on the medical bed, their large eyes focusing on the adults around them with frightening clarity. "They want to kill me," the child said, not as a question but as a simple statement of fact. Marcus moved to take Nyx's hand, his protective instincts flaring. "Over my dead body." "That may be exactly what they have in mind," Zephyr said softly. "Marcus, there is something I must tell you about why this matters so much. Why I risked everything to bring you here." She moved to a wall panel and pressed her palm against it. The surface shimmered and became transparent, revealing the darkness of space beyond. But scattered across that darkness were the lights of dozens of ships, all moving with purpose toward their location. 5 years ago, I was a different person," Zephyr began, her voice taking on a distant quality. "I was commander of the 3rd Assault Fleet, tasked with securing convergence territory against human expansion. I believed in the righteousness of our cause, in the necessity of keeping our species separate and pure." She paused, watching the approaching lights. "Then I met Dr. James Chen, a human xenobiologist who had been captured during a raid on a research station. He was supposed to be interrogated and then executed, but something about him made me hesitate. He spoke of unity, of cooperation, of a future where our children could play together under the same suns." Marcus felt his breath catch. "Nyx's father?" "Yes," Zephyr whispered. "James and I fell in love, despite everything that should have made it impossible. When I discovered I was carrying his child, we both knew what it would mean. A hybrid child would be seen as an abomination by both our peoples, proof of contamination and betrayal." Nyx squeezed Marcus's hand, and he realized the child had heard this story before. In those young eyes, he saw the weight of being born into a universe that viewed their very existence as a crime. "James died protecting us when Nyx was born," Zephyr continued. "Hardliners in the Convergence had discovered our relationship and came to eliminate what they saw as a genetic aberration. James held them off long enough for me to escape with Nyx, but he paid with his life." Lieutenant Raven stepped forward, her tattoos pulsing brighter. "Commander, we need to make a decision. We can't outrun both fleets, and we can't fight them both." Zephyr nodded grimly. "There is one option, the abandoned research station in the Kalos system. It's in neutral space, technically belonging to neither side. If we can reach it, we might be able to establish a defensive position." Marcus looked at the tactical display Raven had activated, studying the movements of the approaching fleets. His engineer's mind began working through the problem, calculating distances and fuel consumption, analyzing potential escape routes. "What's the station's condition?" he asked. "Unknown," Raven replied. "It's been abandoned for 3 years since the last ceasefire negotiations broke down. Power, life support, defensive systems, all unknown variables." Marcus grinned, and both aliens looked at him in surprise. "Unknown variables are my specialty. I can get any station running no matter what condition it's in. But we'll need time, and you'll need to buy me that time." Nix sat up in bed, their hybrid features animated with sudden hope. "You have a plan, don't you, Marcus?" "I have the beginning of a plan," Marcus admitted. "But it's going to require all of us working together, and it's going to be dangerous." Commander Zephyr moved closer, her presence commanding and reassuring at the same time. "Tell us." Marcus stood, his mind racing through possibilities and contingencies. "We make for the research station just like you suggested, but instead of hiding there, we turn it into something neither fleet will expect. We turn it into a beacon." "A beacon for what?" Raven asked. "For every ship in the sector that believes in what Nix represents," Marcus explained. "There have to be others, humans and convergents alike, who are tired of the war. People who've lost family and friends to a conflict that seems to have no end. We broadcast Nix's story, show them that cooperation is possible." Zephyr shook her head. "The hardliners will destroy the station before they allow such a message to be heard." "Not if we make it too expensive," Marcus countered. "Research stations are built to withstand almost anything. If I can get the defensive systems online and modify them for maximum efficiency, we can make taking the station cost more than either. Fleet is willing to pay." Nix swung their legs off the medical bed, standing with determination that belied their age. "And while they're deciding whether to attack, people will hear our message. They'll see that I exist, that love between our species is possible." Marcus knelt down to Nix's level, looking into those remarkable eyes that held both human warmth and alien depth. "Are you sure you want to do this? Once we broadcast your existence, there will be no going back. You'll never be able to hide again." Nix smiled, and it was like watching hope take physical form. "I was never meant to hide, Marcus. I was meant to be proof that the future can be better than the past." The next few hours passed in a blur of preparation and desperate flight. Zephyr's ship, the Harmony's Edge, pushed its engines beyond safe limits as they raced toward the Kalos system. Behind them, the pursuit fleets grew closer with each passing minute, their combined firepower enough to reduce a planet to asteroid fragments. Marcus spent the time studying the research stations, technical specifications, planning his approach to the repair work that would need to be done. The station had been state-of-the-art when it was built, a joint venture between human and convergent scientists who had believed in cooperation. The irony wasn't lost on him that it might become the symbol of that cooperation once again. When they finally reached the research station, Marcus felt his heart sink. The structure hung in space like a broken monument, its hull scarred by micrometeorite impacts and radiation damage. Several sections showed signs of deliberate sabotage, probably inflicted by extremists from both sides who couldn't bear to see the symbol of cooperation survive. "Well," Marcus muttered as he suited up for the spacewalk that would begin his work, "I've fixed worse things. Probably." Nix appeared beside him in the airlock, wearing a specially modified suit that accommodated their unique physiology. "I'm coming with you." "Absolutely not," Marcus said immediately. "It's too dangerous, and you're too important." "I'm important because of what I represent," Nix replied with wisdom that seemed impossible for their age. "And what I represent is the willingness to risk everything for the chance of something better." Commander Zephyr entered the airlock, her own suit gleaming with alien technology. "Nix is right. We all go together, or we don't go at all. That's what unity means." Marcus looked at both of them, then at Lieutenant Raven, who had joined them with a case full of alien tools he didn't recognize. Despite everything, he found himself smiling. "All right then," he said, checking his suit seals one final time. "Let's go fix the future." The work that followed was unlike anything Marcus had ever attempted. The research station was a maze of human and alien technology that had been integrated in ways that defied conventional engineering principles. Systems that should have been incompatible had been made to work together through sheer determination and brilliant improvisation. With Nix's help translating between human and convergence technical languages and Zephyr's knowledge of military systems, Marcus began to bring the station back to life. Power flowed through dormant conduits, life support systems hummed back to functionality, and most importantly, the communication array began to reach out across the sector with their message. The broadcast was simple but powerful. Nix spoke directly to the camera, their young voice carrying across space to reach anyone willing to listen. They talked about their dreams of peace, their hope for a future where differences were celebrated rather than feared, their love for both the human and convergent sides of their heritage. As the broadcast spread, something remarkable began to happen. Ships started arriving at the station, not to attack but to offer protection. Merchant vessels, science ships, even a few military craft whose crews had grown tired of the endless conflict. They formed a loose perimeter around the research station, a volunteer fleet united by hope rather than hatred. When the human and convergence battle fleets finally arrived, they found themselves facing not just a handful of refugees, but a coalition of dozens of ships representing every inhabited system in the sector. The standoff that followed was tense but non-violent, with neither side willing to fire the first shot that would start a battle involving so many civilian vessels. Marcus stood in the station's command center, watching the tactical displays that showed hundreds of ships maintaining their positions through sheer determination. Beside him, Nix monitored the communications channels, their face glowing with joy as message after message of support flowed in from across human and convergence space. "They're listening," Nix whispered. "People are hearing our message, and they're choosing hope over fear." Commander Zephyr approached, her expression tired but proud. "The fleet commanders are requesting a meeting. Both sides want to hear what we have to say." Marcus nodded, feeling the weight of the moment settling around them like a comfortable cloak. "Then I guess we better give them something worth hearing." The negotiations that followed would become legend, but they began with a simple gesture. When the human admiral and the convergence fleet commander met aboard the research station, they were greeted not by diplomats or politicians, but by a hybrid child who offered them both her hands in friendship. In that moment, with Nix standing between two former enemies and Marcus watching from the side, the future shifted. Not completely, not without struggle, but enough to plant the seeds of something better. Months later, Marcus found himself back on Haven's Edge colony. But everything had changed. The little outpost had become a hub of cooperation between human and convergence engineers, working together to develop new technologies that neither species could have created alone. Ships from both cultures docked at the expanded station regularly, their crews working side by side on projects that would benefit everyone. Nix had become something more than a symbol. The child was now an ambassador, traveling between worlds to share their message of unity and hope. They visited Marcus often, always full of stories about the progress being made and the friendships being forged. On quiet evenings, Marcus would sit in his workshop and think about the moment when Commander Zephyr had asked him to kneel. He had thought it was about submission, about bowing to superior force. But he understood now that it had been about humility, about recognizing that sometimes the most important thing you can do is get down on someone else's level and offer your help. The future was far from perfect. There were still those on both sides who opposed cooperation, Still conflicts and misunderstandings that threatened to tear apart the fragile peace. But there was also hope, carried in the voice of a hybrid child who had refused to accept that love between species was impossible. Marcus Webb had fixed many things in his life, but none had been as important as helping to fix the broken relationship between two species. And as he watched ships from both cultures working together in the space above his colony, he knew that this was just the beginning of something extraordinary. The universe was vast and full of possibilities, and thanks to one small child who embodied the best of both worlds, those possibilities were finally being explored together.